Hello. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? You know, I'm really losing track of the days at this point. But I figured I'd go live again a little bit early, just like we did last Thursday. Because, you know, as I get more time back in my pocket, that means, again, more time that I can apply against the stream. What I'd love to do is I'd love to just hang out with you guys and chat for a little bit until around 6 o'clock. Got about 10 minutes worth of just chatting. You know, let me know where you're chiming in from. We got a lot to go over today, though. We're probably going to be pushing into like the 7:30 Eastern, maybe even close to 8 o'clock tonight. But we're going to spend a lot of time at the start of the stream here. You know, once we dive into the content that I picked out for us to talk about today, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Crimea. Welcome in. 12 minutes to hump day here. What? It's hump day's any day. It just depends on your attitude about it. I'm going to turn the music back on just a little bit. Shh, Dad, what's up? What's up, Ronnie? How are you feeling? Spicy? I'm always spicy. That's my secret. I'm always spicy, but you know, sometimes the spice sneaks up on you. Sometimes it hits you right in the mouth, like right at the front of the tongue. No, I'm good. Again, as I get closer and closer to being full time, I'm living the best life I can because this is what I want to do for a living. You know, I might not be perfect. I'm a human being, but you know, showing this footage, showing the mission that we've got, this is what I want to do. Right, I have my other stream over there. I like to kick back and play video games. Again, some of you guys like watching My Little Pony. I like to play games in my free time. It's whatever you want to do. But that's what I want to do. Right, now we got something really cool coming up. A big time first for me. I've been invited to a meetup of a bunch of other tubers, and we're gonna shoot some guns, and I'm really excited about that. But once that gets closer, I am booked for travel, so I could probably talk about it. I just don't know. I don't know how all this works. Right, I just make videos on the internet. Hi from Brazil. Welcome in. God bless Ukraine. Love to see where everyone's from. Yes, it does really help us. The more comments in the chat, the better that is for us. But I am honestly always just so surprised with how far the community reaches. I did make some adjustments to who can chat. I had it previously on 5-minute subscriber only. It's now on 1 minute, right? As we kind of progress along and develop the community a little bit more, having our own forward-facing content rather than just being behind the scenes, I'll begin to open up those restrictions a little bit. But we were inviting all kinds of crazy nonsense. It wasn't ATACMS, it was a Russian gesture of goodwill. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Everybody knows it suffered the same fate as the Moscow, right? And we all know the Moscow is in U-boat dock right now. Under the water. Kosovo. Wow. Hello from deep South Texas. Welcome in. Love from Tennessee. Rome. I've always wanted to visit Rome. I've got this unhealthy obsession with like Greco-Roman history. You know, when I tell people I'm a history nerd, they'll ask me questions. World War II, World War I, Korea War. It's all like Greco-Roman history. But I really want to visit Rome, and I've been told by people who have similar interests that I do that I'll be really disappointed, and I really want to believe that that's bullshit. I hope you get to do an episode with Brandon Herrera Demo Ranch. I'd love to hang out with him. I've met each of them. I got the chance to meet him at SHOT Show. Really genuine people. You know, I've been watching these dudes for a long time, and it gets to a point to where it seems like they're almost larger than life personalities. You know, Mike Grantham, another one. Some of the most genuine people I've ever met, to be quite honest with you. Albuquerque, New Mexico in the house. What's up? Now, let's talk about the schedule a little bit. So this will be the only stream this week. We won't have a stream on Thursday. I'll be traveling Thursday because I'll be competing in the tactical games. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically a workout with guns. But I'll be competing in the tactical games on Saturday, and I have to travel for that. So I'll be leaving my place Thursday, and we won't be around for any of the streams Thursday or Friday. So this is our only stream this week. Why bleeping words? Just wondering, my friend. Because I have a potty mouth and I need to get into the habit of not, you know, I have a potty mouth. Rome's dirty, unorganized city with a great... See, that's what I've been told, and that's so disappointing to me. Anyway, at least I've still got my bourbon. Compete. So is there winnings? No, not really. It is competition, though. And I'm really excited about it. It's the first time... So I was on the marksmanship team back in high school. It was basically just air rifle, but I absolutely loved doing it. You know, fast forward to now, yeah, most of you know I go by the nickname Ronnie Fit. There's a reason for that. I lost like 100 pounds, and fitness is a big part of my life. And the tactical games, what I'm really excited about is it kind of fuses fitness and firearms together. You know, a lot of people focus on being better shooters, or they focus on, you know, looking better naked, which is ultimately all you're really working out to do is look better naked. But putting those things together from like a survivability perspective just makes sense. You know what I mean? What's up, Zard? Poor Brandon got temporary suspension for Japanese pipe gun. I saw that. We actually, in my latest video that we uploaded to YouTube, which YouTube is actually stepping on all of our reach right now. It's something we're always dealing with. But YouTube is really stepping on reach for us at the moment. The sponsored slot was actually LAS Concealment Holsters, and they sent me Brandon Herrera's Glock 19 inside the waistband holster. So I have the distinction of being able to say that Brandon Herrera was in my pants. And I'm excited about it because he fit perfectly. Blanton's per usual. No, I'm out of Blanton's. We're sipping on Basil Hayden's tonight. Go to Pompeii. That thumbnail, though. I did provide credit on the thumbnail. I think it's actually an M270 that's sitting in the inner tube. And I didn't make it, but I did provide credit to the first person that I saw it. I've seen it multiple times now, but I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. That I'm not sorry. That's going to stay the thumbnail forever. That's a big smile for a dude in your pants. Don't kink shame me. Let's get started tonight. All right. Let's get started. We're gonna start by talking about Crimea. Early start, yeah. Lately I've been going. Well, there we go, backtracking again. Lately I've been starting a little bit early, just to hang out with you guys, just to chat, talk about stuff on a broader level than just footage, right? Buffalo Trace was really good when it came out, so it's so good these days. I like Basil Hayden's. I drink it typically neat, 1 to 2 rocks at the most. What do you think hit Crimea? That's actually what we're about to talk about here. Rome has its flaws like anywhere else, but safe. Don't let the little things stop you from having a great time in Rome. Yeah, I probably wouldn't, but people just, people that have gone to Rome kind of downplay how awesome it's going to be when I do get the chance to go. I'm going to make my own way, come to my own conclusions. It's disappointing, how much people say, oh, I thought it was going to be great, but it was just dirty, or, the food sucked, or, they just try to ruin it for everybody else. Crimea, let's go, please. Don't tell me what to do. That's not fair. I don't come to your job and ask you why you're not hurrying up. All right, I'm having my bourbon. We're chatting together. We'll get there. We got a lot of stuff to go over, right? The longer before I get to all that stuff, the later I'm going to be here tonight. Gore today, yes. We will have some not safe for work. We've got that staged towards the end of the episode, though, and it's actually we're going to be talking about an operation in Israel, specifically Operation Breaking Dawn. So there's some pretty rough stuff coming up. Rome was awesome. Dude, drink water. Bourbon is unhealthy. I'm unhealthy. Let's jump in. So Crimea was attacked today, and according to Russia, it was an accidental explosion because of cigarette smoke, somebody smoking cigarettes. Not unlike the Moscow being sunk, it was a fire that ultimately led to an ammunition depot catching or two very, very far separated ammunition depots exploding. We've got a consolidated video here of at least all of the video feeds that were available at around 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning. I know there have been others that have been released since, but what we're going to be really focusing on here is, you know, obviously the big question, did Ukraine do it? They did. But what did they use for it? So that's going to be the focus of this first section that we talk about. We're going to be pulling up Google Maps. We're going to take a look at some distances. We're going to take a look at some capabilities, some things that were reported by mainstream media, some sources from inside Ukraine, and pulling out little bits and pieces of information from each of those things to help lead us towards what could potentially have been the weapon system that was used. And now we're also going to talk a little bit about some other attacks. And the importance that's going to come along with each of these is that what we're looking at is essentially an expansion of the capabilities that have been shown to date. Whether or not that's ATACMS, most of you are familiar with ATACMS, or another organically homegrown weapon system is yet to be found. So, after that, we're going to talk about the $1 billion aid package that's on its way to Ukraine. You know, we're going to, just like every other time we have a presidential drawdown package, we're going to go through that, what it's got in it, you know, what they've received so far to date, what that total monetary value is. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Just one real video there and one key point to all this, which is really the comparison of, you know, Zaporizhzhia to, you know, what's often compared to Chernobyl. So the first thing, like I said, let's take a look at this video of Crimea and all of those different feeds that were released earlier today. Slide the bourbon out of the way. Oh, and to the man that said I needed water, I've got water right here in my Funker 530 mug. Video is coming up for you guys right now. AGM-88, we're going to talk about that. Yep, we've got the AGM-88 listed as a talking point. Probably not, and I'll tell you why. Let's take a look at these.
Это пиздец. В рот мне...
Yeah, massive event is even an understatement for this.
Все, у меня сердце встает, я пошел, блядь, бухать нахуй.
We're going to talk about the gravity of this here in just a second, though. Secondaries? More than likely, yeah. Especially with those larger plumes, there's sympathetic explosions.
В двух местах слегка порезал ножку, но незначительно. Вот смотрите. Огромный огненный шар только что.
Maybe use ATACMS in conjunction with an AGM-88, but would be a hell of a well-planned strike package. Yep. So we're going to look at something else here. As soon as this one's done. So that was the strike that took place on the Saki Air Base, which is home to the 43rd Separate Naval Assault Aviation Regiment. It was a mouthful. I knew it was a mouthful. 43rd Separate Naval Assault Aviation Regiment. And that's a big deal because it's really far away from where Ukrainians are, specifically 200 plus kilometers. Now, nothing, or almost nothing, in Ukraine's current arsenal has the capability to reach that far. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up a map. Stand by. First, I want to show you guys what was actually on the ground at Saki Air Base. It included, at a bare minimum, 12 Su-24s, 10 Su-30SMs, an IL-76, which is a passenger plane, a very large one, and a lot more. So what we're going to look at here is some satellite imagery of that. Let's open this in a new tab up here. Stand by. Give you a bit bigger photo. F11, full screen. I'm going to put myself in the low left. So the Saki Air Base is essentially the seat of air power for the entirety of the southern offensive for Russia. There's a large amount of air capability that had been stored here. Again, everything ranging from close air support type stuff to strategic bombers to flights in and out of Crimea. So just giving you a better understanding of what Russia had in that location. But what is it that could have struck 200 kilometers away? The initial thought from everybody was, oh, well, it's just another HIMARS strike. Well, HIMARS GMLRS, the guided multiple launch rocket system munitions, have a maximum capability of somewhere around 70 kilometers. The first thought from everybody was that it would be ATACMS, right, or the Army Tactical Missile System. Now, Army Tactical Missile System, we've talked about quite a bit. It's got the appropriate range for it. It is compatible with the HIMARS. The HIMARS has been in the news quite often. It would also, theoretically be compatible with the M270s that they're receiving from other NATO allies. But here's the problem with that. In a report from the LA Times, a quote, and I can't validate this, I didn't speak to this official. In a report from the LA Times, a senior Ukrainian official said very specifically that this attack was with a device, and I quote, exclusively of Ukrainian manufacture. I'm going to give you guys that report if you want to go take a look at it, and this is in the stream description. So that is the LA Times reporting. Now, with that in mind, if we are going to assume that that source was correct and that the LA Times reporting was sound, then we really start to get limited to only a couple of capabilities. Now, if it was ATACMS, there is a precedent for them to be using a capability that we haven't heard of them receiving, specifically the AGM-88s. The AGM-88 is essentially an anti-radiation or anti-radar weapon system, or munition, I should say, that has been retrofitted to mount on Soviet-era MiGs. And when I say retrofitted, there's a really long thread. Let me see if I have a link for that. I don't. But there was a long thread that I found that kind of explained how that's been retrofitted. Essentially, the AGM-88 targets Su-300 or S-300s, S-400s, anti-air and radar capabilities. So it's a very advanced weapon system that the U.S. provided without telling anybody. Now, last Thursday, might have been Tuesday, I mentioned that if Ukraine does receive ATACMS, it's probably going to be without anybody knowing. From an OPSEC perspective, they're just going to send that, and we're going to see the results of that in video, in reporting of things that happened within range of ATACMS. Now, if LA Times is to be believed, which I have no reason to believe that they shouldn't be, then we have to shift focus to other capabilities that Ukraine has. I myself was a proponent early on, before I read this article, that this was ATACMS, and that Ukraine had just not announced that it was ATACMS. If you go to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense Twitter, they're actually trolling the Russians with a shot of the Crimea beach, and it says something to the effect of, putting the military near the beach is not compatible with tourism. Something along those lines. It was a Chad move, and I had a good laugh about it. So let's talk about native capabilities that Ukraine does have. The first thought that came to mind was Tochka-U. Well, Tochka is not a native Ukrainian capability. It is a short-range ballistic missile, a relatively antiquated one, believed to have been used in targeting the Ukrainian shopping mall not too long ago. So that was my second thought. But that doesn't fit either because, again, according to the senior Ukrainian official, it is a homegrown Ukrainian capability. So that leads us to these two short-range ballistic missiles. The first being the Grom, or the Thunder. Video coming up for you guys here. I got copywritten music. I'm going to have to keep that off. So the Grom is an interesting one, right? The actual nomenclature for it is the HRIM-2. This is an interesting one because it is a Ukrainian-developed, top-to-bottom, short-range ballistic missile with its own launch system. It was unveiled in 2018. This YouTube video is circa 2018. I'll give you guys a link to their channel, so you can go check that out. And it would technically fit the capability description of, A, what the senior defense official, senior Ukrainian official said, which is that it was a homegrown Ukrainian capability. B, it would somewhat fit the timeline, right? So the timeline being that they announced this in 2018 for eventual capability. But something that's interesting about this is that it's actually it's actually funded, in part at least, by Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia provided $40 million for the development of that weapon system, specifically, again, the Grom or the Thunder, after the U.S. and Russia denied them the ATACMS and the Iksander. Now, the Grom is Ukraine's response to Russia's Iksander. Both of those missile systems are considered, essentially the same thing. Now, there's two different types of the Iksander. There's the Iksander M and the Iksander E. The E is the export version. But what was interesting when I started diving down into this was that it's partially funded, at least, by Saudi Arabia, under the premise that Saudi Arabia is to receive some of these. So this was one of the possible next options of what Ukraine used. This footage specifically is of the engine or the rocket test that they did back in 2018. Okay. Now, if it's not the Grom, what are the other potential capabilities? Well, then we have anti-ship capabilities that also have surface-to-surface capabilities like the Neptune. So the Neptune is, once again, Ukraine-developed, based largely around the Soviet Ka-35. And there are a couple key points to the Neptune, though. Video's coming up for you here. Copyright music gonna kill that. This is actually a really amazing video to watch. Now, the Neptune is an extremely slow yet low-flying missile that's designed for anti-ship capabilities, but does have the capability to target land. Right? There is a way that the Neptune can engage land-based targets. The Neptune is also what Ukraine claims to have used to sink the Moscow. This is amazing. We're watching these fighters flying alongside these Neptune systems. I thought this was just amazing footage. Tech is with that thumbnail. The very likely way that Ukraine attacked Crimea. Yeah, 100%. So the design around the Neptune is, although it flies very slowly, and you're looking at about 900 kilometers per hour, which is subsonic. If you compare that to like the ATACMS, which moves, Mach 3 plus, that's going to be somewhere around 3,600 kilometers per hour. The major design difference there is that the Neptune is designed to fly under radar, and you see how low they are to the ground right now. So there have been a lot of questions about how was Ukraine able to do this? How are they able to, target Crimea, which is, theoretically a fortress after, since 2014, Russia has held that ground, been continuously setting up, air defense, layered defensive capabilities. The Neptune might make sense because it is designed to circumvent or mitigate the threat of air defense. Now, where things start to get really interesting is going back to the AGM-88. The AGM-88 is designed to take out air defenses. Whatever was used, whether it's ATACMS or if it's the Neptune, there was a likely test of this a couple days prior. Specifically on a ammunition depot in Kherson Oblast. We'll take a look at where each of these occurred on a map here in just a second. Got some quick video here. It's only like a 30-second video, but then I'll show you a map of where this attack took place, which is 150 kilometers from Ukrainian front lines.
БК на взлет, сука. Наконец-то, блядь. Надеюсь, это все-таки хаймерсами добро.
Now again, that took place 150 kilometers from the Ukrainian front line. I'm going to pull up a map for you guys here. Promised I would. Well outside the range of many of the more prominently known Ukrainian capabilities. Now there's a running theme or a running thread across Twitter right now, and you got to take Twitter analyses with a grain of salt. There's a lot of really great information and footage that comes from Twitter, but you really have to take it with a grain of salt. There's a running theme that if this was a new capability, whether it be ATACMS or even the Grom, the Thunder, that it was tested initially outside of current capability distance, a couple days ago in Kherson Oblast, before it was used to strike well into Crimea. All right. Let's take a look at a map, and I'll show you how far away the Crimea attack was from Ukraine's front lines. It was like 200 at the very shortest distance, 220 kilometers. It was far away. Right. Let's take a look. Take a look at the chat while we're talking here. Gavin, thank you very much for becoming a member. Welcome. Matt, thank you for the $5. Hey, Ronnie, what kind of earbuds are those? And where can I purchase them? These are like $30 cheapo Amazon headphones over on the gaming side of the house. Over there on that stream side, I run Bose QC20s, but I would really like to get rid of those for... I've been looking at some 64 audios, but those are real spendy. Bremner's Ghost, thanks for the $6. Pretty fireworks. Let's get that map pulled up here. Check this out. Let me show you how deep into Ukraine they struck. Or into Crimea, I should say. So, the strike took place here. Now, again, operating off of the minimum distance, which I measured from about right here. Excuse me, I had to cough. You're looking at like 218, 220 some odd kilometers. Now, regardless of what capability was used, it probably wasn't going to be parked right here. That just probably wasn't going to happen. So that means that there's going to be additional standoff that was used for this. Now, any of those capabilities that we talked about had that range, whether it be the Grom or the Thunder 2. The Neptune has that range, and so does ATACMS. Here's where the plot thickens. According to that same senior defense official, Ukrainian partisans were used to support this. So, essentially, Wolverines down there by the Saki Air Base. So that means that we've now added an additional, question mark to this. And at what level? It's obvious if they announced that partisans were involved, that the Ukrainian version of Patrick Swayze was involved. At what level were they involved? Did they initiate this? Were they, doing some form of laser designation, providing, target validation, forward observer type work? Once I read that, which I believe is in the same New York Times report that is linked down in the stream description, everything we talk about is always going to be in the stream description. Go check the stream description. Adding that piece of information just made the waters even muddier. Okay, let's jump into the chat here. You didn't make a measurement from the dinghy. That was real close, man. That was like right next door. Submarine? No, probably not. I saw a funny meme though. It said, it showed the U.S. handing Ukraine munitions, and it said, "You are not to use these in on Russian soil." And it was cats, and one of the cats was like, "But Crimea is Ukrainian soil," and then the American cat was like, "Crimea is Ukrainian soil." 1440p? Yep, we should be streaming at 1440p, I think. This goes very deep. Giggity goo. It is really deep. Really deep. Really hard for the Russians right now. And in fact, the lines over the Kerch Bridge to try to get out of Crimea were absolutely ridiculous. There was a video on Twitter. It wasn't combat footage, so I kind of just watched it and moved on, of the backup of cars. Did I mispronounce it? Thanks for the $2, that rampant pigeon. You're new here. Well, welcome in, Glenn. Welcome in. SF op. Well, that's what I'm kind of, referencing here with Ukrainian partisans, right? They're not going to say this is one of our, tiered teams that we've got down there in Crimea. They're going to say partisan activity. What's left to question is at what level. We know that they were involved, according to, Ukrainian reports, but at what level? Was it a missile strike, or did they initiate it? Not sure. Now, that Ukrainian anonymous official said, again, and I quote, let me grab that quote so I don't get misquoted, that it was a device exclusively of Ukrainian manufacture. So that leads me to believe that it was a missile system of some kind, more than likely either the Grom, which would have had to have really just hit service, or the Neptune, right? It's not going to be ATACMS. If we are to believe that LA Times report, check the stream description if you want that link. Any chance it was carried out by one Su-25 or MiG-21? Maybe, right? That's where you get into the capabilities of, like the AGM-88s. The AGM-88s can be retrofitted to essentially just use GPS guidance rather than target, radar sites or Su-300s. And they have 150 kilometer maximum range. So here's a scenario. And I did originally have the AGM-88 listed as a potential, which would have been delivered by, fighter aircraft. Here's a scenario where that would make sense. Over the last, couple weeks, Ukraine has been very actively targeting Su-300 sites in and around the Kherson area. If we had whittled that bone or that wood all the way down to the point to where it was ineffective, at least for a short window, there's a possibility that fighter aircraft could have made it inside of that effective range, turned around and beat feet and got out of there. That is a possibility. Is it known if any civilians were killed? So far, what I have seen is 1 killed and somewhere around 9 injured. The footage that I saw of the aftermath was a lot of aircraft that had been destroyed. It was very short, like 2-3 second clips. It's probably stuff that we'll continue to keep an eye out for. SOF and a suicide drone. Doubtful. doubtful with the size. Now, you are looking at sympathetic explosions, right? So there's a possibility that one loitering munition could have caused the initial problem, which, you know, even when you're looking at the video, you can tell that something has happened already. There's a lot of black smoke before those sympathetic explosions. Let me show you guys what I mean. Video's coming up for you again. We're going to watch this one more time if you weren't here to see all the video. So that's a possibility. It seems less likely to me without any real analytical data to support that. You know, I feel like they would have flexed based on the attacks that just took place, you know, a day prior. I feel like they would have flexed a capability here because they're kind of trolling surrounding the whole event. Let's check out the video. So if you look before, there's already smoke before this sympathetic det. You know, one on each side here. But that was something that I noted, you know, the first time I watched the video is prior to the large explosion that we're looking at here, which is likely those ammunition depots, there was already, you know, smoke coming from the airfield. That one looks good. This smoke. Wasn't it internal sabotage? Nobody knows that for certain. And anybody that's reporting a certainty up to the point to where I prepared the show tonight is probably just making that leap. We've talked about a lot of different options that this could have been. We've talked about the Grom, ATACMS. We've talked about the Neptune, AGM-88s. We even kind of mentioned the Tochka. We talked about the context that surrounds it and the announcements that have been made by Ukrainian senior defense or senior Ukraine officials. So it's hard to say. Now, the sabotage piece to this, we do know that they were involved based on that same senior Ukrainian official, but at what level, it's difficult to say. Wait, what happened? Did Ukraine hit Sevastopol? No, they didn't. They hit I don't know how to pronounce it, Saki Air Base, which was home to the 43rd Separate Naval Assault Aviation Regiment. Saki Air Base. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. There you go. Which, I mean, how far away is Sevastopol from that airbase? At maximum. Is HIMARS on dinghy possible? Yes. I can only hope. So when Will and I, Will posted this one, so when he and I were going back and forth on it, what did he say? I think he said it was HIMARS disguised as a beluga whale. And that was the only thing that made sense. Bro, there's a lot of different videos of that airbase getting hit. I'm tracking. Yeah, we have, 5, 6, 7 of them in the footage that we just watched. But we're not just talking about the base getting hit. That's a foregone conclusion. Everybody's tracking that. What we're speculating on is the different Ukrainian capabilities that could have been used for it, because that does matter. If for example, for instance they have received ATACMS, that it drastically increases Ukraine's capability. If the Grom or the Thunder is now an operational capability, once again, that drastically increases their capability. If it was the Neptune and it was used from, surface to surface perspective, kind of drastically increases their capability. One way or another, Russia now knows that Ukraine can reach into its back pocket and slap it in the ass. Top to bottom. Kind of a precedent-setting strike. Lions, tigers, bears, and partisans. John Pinkerton, thank you for the 199. Is it known as civilians were killed? Yep. I think I responded to that one, but no, not that I'm aware of. Thy Rampant Pigeon, thanks again for the 242. And Gavin, thanks again for becoming a member. Taylor, thank you for becoming a member. Jacob, thank you for becoming a member. Goodness, guys. Joshua Respecki, thanks for the 6 months. All right, let's jump into the next thing I wanted to talk about. And that's going to be the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Sip of bourbon for this one. Keep striking, keep slap. I'm going to allow that comment. Sorry, I had to manage the chat for a second. So, let's talk about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. A lot of reports going back and forth right now. You know, he said, she said kind of stuff. Kind of reminds me of my kids. You know, that's not really an appropriate analogy to use there, but it does. You know, he did it. No, she did it. She did it. Ukraine and Russia have been actively blaming each other for various strikes that are happening at or near the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. We in this community have, looked at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant before, but the last time we really focused on it, there was a live firefight happening there, and this was in late February. We're going to take a look at a video here. The video is going to show you guys various munitions being moved in and around the nuclear power plant by Russia, which lends a little bit of credence to what Ukraine's biggest challenge and problem with Russia has been, and that is effectively using the Europe's largest nuclear power plant as essentially a nuclear shield. Check this out. I'm going to the store. What kind of bourbon you want? Blanton's? Thanks. See you when you get back. Now, what you're looking at right here, and I don't know the correct terminology for this. Hold on. I don't know the correct terminology for this, so don't shoot me. But nuclear reactor would be what I would call that. There's nuclear stuff in there, and if it blows up, it's bad. Now, one of those went bad in Chernobyl, and there are 6 of those at this nuclear power plant. Back to the video. So the point to what I'm showing you here is Russia has been accused of firing BM-21 Grads from here. Not really known to be the most sound, accurate, and modern weapon system. I can show you guys what a BM-21 Grad looks like. It's basically, an old farm truck that's got a bunch of tubes on the back that, dangerous stuff flies out of the front of in a general direction. Firing a BM-21 Grad from a nuclear power plant towards Ukrainians is kind of step one. There's some balls there. Now, Ukraine blames Russia for essentially using the nuclear power plant, like I said, as a shield almost. Russia blames Ukraine for some recent artillery strikes that happened at the nuclear power plant that damaged some of its electrical capabilities and did put the plant at risk. One way or another, Russia's storage of military munitions there, using that as a base of its power from a military perspective, itself puts the entirety of Europe at risk. It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, looking at it from Russia's perspective, we'll get comments, saying, of course they would put it there. It protects their military systems. It's an easy way to keep Ukraine from targeting those. Well, first of all, Russia shouldn't be there in the first place. So maybe if they could not be there, they wouldn't have to put military weapons at the nuclear power plant to begin with. It doesn't make sense. Sorry, I dove down into the spicy hole for a second there. But the counter to the argument of Russia putting, of using a nuclear power plant for a base of operations is, well, of course they would want to do that because it would protect their stuff. Well, why are they there in the first place? We circle. It's like a cyclical goat rope that we get into with this. Like, well, of course Russia would do that. They wouldn't have to do that if they weren't there. Maybe I'm stupid, but that's how my brain works, is just not be there and you won't have to worry about this problem. All right, let's move on. Murphy's Law says whatever can go wrong will. Just going to leave it. We're going to leave it there. I just read on Apple News that we've actually sent HARM missiles to Ukraine and AGM-88s. Correct. With an undisclosed amount, spare parts mod. Yep. Yeah, we were talking about AGM-88s. The range for those would make sense for that second attack we talked about in Kherson Oblast. And unless we have essentially whittled down Crimea's air defense, the range wouldn't quite reach into that 220 plus, probably somewhere closer to 250, 260 kilometers that it would need to really target that air base. Now, again, if we have, and there have been a lot of reports of S-300s and S-400s being targeted very actively in Kherson over the last couple of weeks, that's where things start to make sense. If even for a few moments there was a gap that Ukraine's Air Force could make it through to get to that 150-kilometer range for those AGM-88s, that starts to really make sense. Where the AGM-88s don't make sense for the targeting of Crimea is that senior Ukrainian official that said the capability we used is homegrown to Ukraine. That's where the Grom or the Thunder and the Neptune come to mind. ATACMS would reach, yep. So if you're just now joining us, we spent, about 20 minutes kind of going over all the different capabilities. You'll have to rewind maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes or so, but we dove into a lot of different possibilities of what it could have been, what it wasn't, what it likely wasn't. Of course, I can't validate any of this. And then some of the context that adds a little bit of mud to that water. Let's jump into our standard Ukraine footage section here. The very first one we've got is some Russian propaganda. And I say it's propaganda not because it didn't happen. This happened. But it didn't happen the way that they said it did. Now, this is reportedly a loitering munition, a Russian loitering munition being used to target a PZH-2000, a German PZH-2000. It's not. This is actually a Ukrainian M109 being used. Now, there's a reason that Russia would want to say that it was a PZH-2000 that was, effectively taken out of the fight, but not forever, because you'll see at the end they are still mobile. Some of the crew actually gets out. There's a reason for that, and that is essentially to continuously set conditions, set narratives that Western munitions can be targeted and destroyed. They did the same thing with the HIMARS. The U.S. is adamant that none of the HIMARS have been taken out to this date. We talked about that at one point. It feels like we would admit that if it was. That way we could send more. Anyway, here's the footage. It's coming up for you guys now. I don't know what specific loitering munition this was used against this, but probably maybe an Orlan, one of their few different loitering munitions. Kamikaze drones, what they're most commonly called. Copyright music on the back. See? So this is a Russian release claiming that this is a PCH-2000. It is not. For those of you that are familiar with that weapon system or that platform, you'll note pretty quickly that it is, that it isn't. So it was just struck, and you can see it's still somewhat mobile. We're coming a little bit off target with our drone here. There it is. Still kind of moving here. What eventually is going to happen is we're going to see a couple dismounts. He appears to be injured, but he's still moving around a little bit. Got another one here that just exited the vehicle. Okay. So again, that was, Russia claimed that was a PCH-2000. It was, in fact, an M109, which were actually there were 20 of those provided by the UK. So still a Western weapon system, which is, kind of an added layer of interesting with why they would call it a PCH-2000. The actual name that PCH is short for is German. It's long, and if I can't pronounce a river's name, I'm not even going to give it a shot. We're not even going to try. All right. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We got some Russian perspective footage coming up for you. Okay, don't worry. We're gonna take a look at Ukrainian ambush in Donetsk, coordinated assault using artillery as well as infantry. Once again, we're gonna have some copywritten music on the back end here. There's my face. Coming up for you now. I'll put myself in the low left here. And it's not good music. It's some pretty cringy stuff. So I'm gonna play music on the side here. Not that. What's that? Panzer something something. That's what I saw. Yeah, Panzerhaubit. I think I nailed it. When they actually get a Panzerhaubitze 2000 or HIMARS, they'll make a huge deal. Oh yeah, yeah, and everybody else will too. It'll be the worst thing that's ever happened. The sky will be falling. Russia won the war because they destroyed a HIMARS. Just send another one. Moving on. So here's where we go back to talking about air capabilities, right? We got some really cool footage of Ukrainian Su-25s firing rockets, so it's cockpit footage. I don't know. I wore our Maverick shirt. It says, do some of that pilot shit. I don't know. I thought it was awesome. But here's where we go back to talking more about those AGM-88s, which are opening up the skies a little bit, especially in the south in Kherson. We will look at the campaign map from the Institute for the Study of War today to talk a little bit about where Ukraine is now, where that combat power is aligned. But we got some combat footage here, and it's some of the coolest stuff. You know, I don't know what it is about cockpit footage. It's just awesome to watch. And again, this goes back to those S-300s that have been targeted actively in the Kherson area over the last, month or so. We know that they've had those AGMs for quite some time, the HIMARS missiles. And it appears as though they've been put to good use because we're seeing a lot more flight-type footage, right? For a little while, it's not unlike the Bayraktar. We saw tons of Bayraktar footage, just tons and tons and tons. And then it fell off, and we stopped seeing Daddy Bayraktar. And now I can't even play the song. How disappointing is that? I mean, I'm really happy for the guy. I'm hoping that he's, able to now profit from making that song because it's an absolute banger. Now, this is reportedly from in the south somewhere near Kherson. Again, those HIMARS missiles have, to an extent, kind of opened up the skies a little bit in Kherson. Some amazing footage here. All right, let's bring it back up. Checking in on the support. Jamie, thank you for the $4.99. I just read on Apple News that I did respond to that one earlier. Thanks again for the $4.99. Mike, thanks for renewing for 2 months. Appreciate that, guys. If you do want to become members of the stream, you can check out the pinned comment up at the top. I will actually recommend that you guys hold that if you do want to support us, because here very soon, like I announced last Thursday, our app and website is going to have an ad-free version. And rather than Google taking 30% of your money to support us, we'd love for you to move that over there, get to experience the site without ads, understanding we love our advertising partners. I've got ATN stuff. I use it pretty regularly. I've got AR500 plates in my carrier. In fact, when I go to the tactical games this weekend, I've got AR500 training plates in there. I love these companies. We love these companies, but we recognize that you might want to just get right to the footage. That's why we're launching the ad-free version. And if you're a member here, please feel free to slide that or move that membership and support to us over to the ad-free version when we launch it. It's getting real close. All right, the very last piece of Ukrainian footage I want to look at today before we jump into the campaign map. Ronnie, please show us some Russian footage. I want to see Russian perspective footage showing Russia doing the tactics. Okay, sorry. Coming up for you here. Just relax. Give me a second. Hold on. Here you go. Let me set the stage for you. What we're going to watch is how Russia navigates a minefield with unarmored vehicles.
Я надеюсь, что я не шахид и вовремя съебу с этой машины. Вот кувалда шахид. Задержать на приеме, бабай. Все пускают. Давай все, кот. Че, выезжать ему? Давай. Пошел!
Давай!
Газу!
He's telling him to gas it. And there it went. Let me translate. I'm going to translate for you guys. You got this. You're going to do great. Glory to Russia, I think. That one was difficult to understand.
Что, выезжать ему? Давай!
Send it!
Пошел, пошел! Газу, газу!
Hit the gas! All right, let's bring it back up. The driver probably did not survive that, so discretion. I should have announced discretion advised. There you go. Here. Right. We've got an edited video being worked on right now that talks about Russian incompetence. This is the boogeyman that we grew up with, that I grew up with. I don't know if you did or not. I don't. But I grew up with this. You know, I was alive when the wall came down. Right. I don't remember much of it because I'm not that old. But I grew up learning about the boogeyman Russia. And they're supposed to be, this is a running joke at this point, the second most capable military in the world. They're not even the second most capable military in Ukraine. They have the numbers, and with those, they are taking ground in certain areas. But a much smaller force right now is absolutely holding its own against Russia. I have nothing against the Russian people. And I've talked about this before. I have nothing against Russian people. The people specifically that are in Russia, right? Soldiers that are now in Russia, fighting on behalf of Russia, committing war crimes, atrocities. I've got everything in the world against those people, right? I've got everything in the world against United States soldiers. I'm still military. You guys might not know that, but I am actively in the military right now. I've got so many problems with people that use positions against those that can't defend themselves. I've got nothing against the Russian people. There's absolutely no reason for you to be there. You're quite literally showing how incapable you are as a military. Top to bottom. Let's jump into the campaign map here. I wanted to take a look at the campaign map because we haven't done that recently. Let's take a look at where things stand. The reason we haven't done this is there hasn't been a whole lot that's changed, right? If you haven't noticed, all of the Russia is winning people have kind of just dissipated into the bushes. It's like the Homer Simpson meme, right? In the East, not a whole lot of ground has taken place. The maximum amount of ground that has taken place is near Bakhmut, right? Once Severodonetsk and Lysychansk were taken, that advance was essentially, from a statistical perspective, halted. They've continued to take inch by inch, but at the cost of what? Losing ground near Kherson. Anywhere that's blue is counteroffensive activity from Ukraine. And the same thing near Kharkiv, continuing to lose ground, which threatens ground lines of communication from Belgorod. There are ground lines of communication that are enabling this eastern assault from Russia. It's behind my camera. That run through here. So this eastern push from Ukraine on the Kharkiv front is beginning to threaten those ground lines of communication. Now, relative to, the strikes we were talking about earlier, I promised you guys we'd take a look at this. You've got Ukraine's forward line here, which is always going to be an approximation based on, currently available information, but it's not going to be far off, especially not for an organization like ISW, the Institute for the Study of War. I'm a big fan of theirs. I am. I've been saying that since day one because they source their work. If I don't agree with something that they publish, I could go and I could find that source. Right? Everywhere else is just, here's everything that I found distilled down without the sources. I like being able to refer back to somebody's sources. I'm an intel dweeb by trade. That's what I do. Right? I want to know what is the source. Somebody jumped in the gaming stream last week and they were like, "Hey, Russia just shelled the nuclear power plant." And I said, "What?" The first question I have for you is, what's the source of that information? It is. That's the first question I ask everybody. Where'd you get that info? What's the source, right? A lot of people are likening this stream and the videos that they're finding really everywhere except for organizations like TASS, which is, Russian state-controlled media, or RU, again, Russian state-controlled media. They're referring to all of this stuff. This is no better than mainstream media. That's because we are all operating off of the same information, right? Now, the difference with us and with mainstream media is you're going to get the spin. How does this align with the political values of my audience? I don't give a shit who you voted for. That's not my problem. It's not. This is the information that we have at hand. Here are the sources that we got it from. Draw from it what you will. So, the southern offensive from Ukraine steadily continuing to take back ground. It's difficult to say whether or not this massive, oft talked about counteroffensive is underway, or the conditions for it are being set, or if ultimately what's being done is setting conditions for Russia to transition combat power out of the east into the south. One way or another, Ukraine just struck 200 plus kilometers into Crimea, which is a capability they haven't really brought to bear to date. If they had, and if Russia had been concerned about that, Russia wouldn't have people just on the beach in Crimea. There was a video out there of beachgoers just kind of running off the beach while there's explosions happening 2 kilometers away. Now, if you guys want a link to this map, which again, we are always going to have new members of the community that join that haven't been here for the stream before. I like to think that we as an organization are a very objective team, right? I myself, as a human being, as an individual, I have my own human biases. If you look through the footage that we have, though, we've got footage of, very effective Russia strikes. We've got footage of very effective Ukrainian strikes, and not all of it's on YouTube. In fact, probably less than 10% of it's on YouTube. There was a comment on one of the latest videos where we're directing you to the app. Why should I sub to the YouTube channel if there is an app and a website? Even if you don't sub to the YouTube channel, we're fine with that. Go get the app. Go watch all perspectives of footage. I'm a human. I have my own biases. I recognize those biases. I'm biased against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There's no reason. If any of you, prove me wrong. If any of you can tell me what a good reason for Russia being in Ukraine is, I'd be happy to have that discussion with you. And my opinion on that has shifted over the months. Originally, it was there's two sides to every coin, right? Let's talk about it. I'm not a supporter of Ukraine. I'm not a supporter of Russia. I don't like the invasion. I am happy to say that my mind has changed. Cutting off people's balls, killing civilians in Bucha. Russia's got to be held accountable. And I don't know. Here's where things start to get bad and interesting. I don't know who's going to hold them accountable for that. I have no idea who's going to do that. What does accountability for that kind of stuff look like? All right, we got a bunch of stuff. We got a bunch more stuff that I want to get into here. So we're coming into footage section 2. For those that are new to the community, that are new to the stream, you might not know, we don't just cover Ukraine. This is not designed to be a Ukraine stream. It is typically often what we talk the most about. Folks that have been here for a while are rolling their eyes right now because I say this every night, but it's important to continue to say that so that people that are new understand the design behind it. Section 2 here is more about other things that are happening across the globe that everybody needs to be aware of, that you need to be tracking, that you need to understand the situation that surrounds it. We're going to talk a lot about Israel tonight. We're going to see a lot of footage of Operation Breaking Dawn. Now, we've seen a lot of footage over the last week of Operation Breaking Dawn, and essentially it's a military operation that was planned by the IDF, and it was supposed to go for 1 week. It actually ended up lasting 66 hours, almost exactly. Hamas, a lot of people equate, the situation in the West Bank right now, or the situation there, to be, Israel versus Hamas. It's actually much deeper than that, right? Or Israel versus Palestine. It's much deeper than that. There are really three organizations that you need to understand, right? You need to understand first the IDF. You need to understand, of course, Hamas, but then there's the PIJ, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Now, IDF focused Operation Breaking Dawn on countering the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ. We're just going to say PIJ. Hamas actually kind of stayed out of this one. They just kind of went hands off here. Here's the problem. Under most circumstances, the PIJ's activity, and they really started around circa 2014 or so, under most circumstances, the PIJ's activity ends up being overshadowed by what Hamas does. We're not diving down into the morality between Palestinians and Israel. We are presenting things in a very matter-of-fact way, or I'm doing my very best to. The PIJ admitted that out of 500 and some odd rockets, a whole bunch of them ended up accidentally turning right around and landing in Gaza. Israel says that somewhere around half of those 490 some odd rockets turned around and ended up landing in Gaza, but the PIJ admitted it. The US, the EU, and Israel designate both Hamas and the PIJ as terrorist organizations. Let's take a look at some of those rockets that are turning around and landing back in Gaza. Too many clickies. Now, what's interesting about this one is this is a live TV broadcast. They're, speaking in a language that I can't understand. But while the broadcast is happening, one of those rockets fired from Gaza makes a U-turn and comes right back. I don't know if they sourced it from Russia. They might have. But it's coming up for you guys right now.
تتجه نحو البحر صواريخ تتجه نحو البحر الآن ربما أحمد باتجاه حقل الألغاز أحمد
نعم أحمد نتابع معك هذه المشاهد.
الصواريخ تتجه نحو البحر أحمد نحو نتابع الصواريخ تتجه نحو البحر هناك انطلقت عدة صواريخ.
Let's watch that again in case you missed it.
نعم إذن صواريخ جديدة أحمد تتجه نحو البحر.
Here's that rocket.
تتجه نحو البحر الآن ربما أحمد باتجاه حقل الألغاز.
It was not supposed to go that direction.
نعم أحمد نتابع معك هذه المشاهد.
الصواريخ تتجه نحو البحر أحمد.
But wait, okay, that was just a fluke, right? Okay. Let's take a look at another one. This one reportedly killed 4 Palestinian children. Reportedly. I said reportedly. Okay. Coming up for you guys here in just a second. What about China? What's y'all's thoughts on that? We actually covered China pretty heavily last week. Right after this, we'll talk about that. Again, that reportedly killed 4 Palestinian children. Can't really validate that too much, but that is what was reported. Now, what we're about to get into here is looking at very some of it's going to be kind of hard to watch. And before we get there, I do want to field that question about China. One of the things we talked about last week, and it's going to be in the Funker News Network Live playlist, is Anytime a Western presidency or administration is in trouble, one of the things you'll see almost immediately is the targeting of a terrorist leader. It's like clockwork. Not saying that we don't actually do that, but we do. Something that's interesting, if you look back 70 years for China, is every administration in China has used Taiwan as a rallying cry. That's something you always have to keep in the back of your mind because it's a way to rally the people around a singular cause, right? And you have to understand, even coming from a cyber perspective, my background is actually in cybersecurity, cyber intelligence. The Great Firewall of China is absolutely a thing. It absolutely keeps the Chinese populace conditioned to what China wants them to see. So, if the Chinese populace has been so conditioned year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation to believe that Taiwan needs to be reunified with China, each time somebody mentions it, it's going to be a rallying cry around that administration. Same thing applies for terrorism. For the last 20 years, 20 plus years, every time we target a terrorist leader, right? Not saying we don't actually do that, because we did. Zawahir is dead. He's dead. He was reading a book on a balcony, and he's dead now. But it just seems to me that it's kind of like an easy button for folks to tap on for an immediate bump in the high fives. Same thing now with China. Every administration has taken a hard stance on Taiwan. So it's always going to be that political rallying cry. Now, where things start to get really weird and interesting is China is continuing to push the boundaries from an exercise perspective on what they're doing. Chinese missiles actually landed in Japan's economic exclusion zone. That's the first time that's ever happened. Normally, they just kind of flirt with that line on the Taiwan Strait, the median line, the line that goes right down the middle of the Taiwan Strait. Normally, they just flirt with that. Well, they surrounded Taiwan with exercises. They launched missiles over Taiwan, over the land. The missile salvo that went over the land landed in Japanese economic exclusion waters. So it's two sides to every coin. Starting to get a little spicy. All right, let's jump into the next video that we've got here. So, a gentleman on a bicycle wearing brown pants is saved by the patience of this Israeli intel team that has been soaking this compound for presumably some time, calling for a delay on the airstrike. You'll see what I mean coming up here in just a second. This is, again, a part of Operation Breaking Dawn.
כרגע יש בן אדם בתוך ה-60 מטר. קיבלת בן אדם בתוך ה-60 מטר מתקרב למבנה? אנחנו בחדר. חדר קיבלנו.
Glad he wore his brown pants.
אלפא על המטרה, האופניים והרכב שעברו שם סמוך, שניהם המשיכו נסיעה בלי פגע.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. So this is, I'm conditioning you with this next video. I'm going to let you know ahead of time. I'm conditioning you with this next video for the video that follows, because the video that follows is going to be very not safe for work. I am letting you know ahead of time that viewer discretion is advised, YouTube overlords, so that if you are not supposed to see stuff like, not this video, but the next one, that you don't be here for it. What we're going to see here is apparently a papier-mâché guard tower being taken out by an unknown missile. We have no idea what kind of missile it was, but it just disintegrates. Right? You have to look at this from a capabilities perspective. In my mind, they're kind of operating with whatever they have, trying to get some level of overwatch on their positions. But it is not capable of it's definitely concealment. Here you go. One more again. Is this propaganda? I don't know. You consider a dude wearing short shorts in his attic propaganda? That's up to you, boss. I don't care. Well, they're not short shorts. They're appropriate length shorts for a man. And you can't tell me otherwise, all right? Let's jump into the next one here. What we're going to see is those same types of structures being targeted. This time this is not safe for work, but this is the kind of footage that we normally leave for the app and for the website. And again, this is all part of Operation Breaking Dawn. So if you're just now joining us, what we've been discussing is essentially the 60 some odd hour operation that Israel took in Gaza against the PIJ, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is one of the two current terrorist designated organizations in Gaza. And we've actually got some footage that just hit the website over the last couple of minutes. I'm gonna send you guys there once this stream is done, so you can take a look at that stuff. One last time. Not safe for work. Coming up for you right now. As soon as my face is off of here on this ad. You've been warned. Whatever. I'm not going to play it again. If you'd like to see it again, you'll have to go back and rewind. We're not gonna play it again. But there's dude that was there. Okay, let's bring it back up. World's worst Disney ride. Man. The thing that bugs me is this war keeps going and people are just going to stop caring and worse things are going to happen when no one is paying attention. We've talked about that before. There was a report that essentially posited that it was the CIA director. What's his damn name? The CIA director essentially said America has ADHD. Oops, almost broke that. That America has ADHD. And that as an eventuality, people are just going to stop caring. Right, because it's just not what it's just not what is kind of aligned with their interests, you know, after a certain amount of time. And we talked about data on our side that kind of speaks to that, specifically being like page views, searches for Ukraine footage on our site. We went from 40 million views inside of like 2-3 week period on the website down to something like 10-15 million monthly now, which is still yet higher than we were. So people are still actively searching for and trying to find, some level of truth of what's actually happening on the ground. And again, if you're only using this stream or any other stream on YouTube to gather all of your information, you're doing yourself a disservice. And our function and goal is to post as much footage as we can possibly find across all conflicts, whether it be Operation Breaking Dawn, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Myanmar coup. No matter what it is, our function and purpose is to make that footage available to you with a little bit of context provided from veteran writers, but no spin. Here is what was reported. Discuss. Note to self: do not use soffit to build your observation. They got what they're using, what they've got on hand, right? I would say those sniper nest videos indicate a need for smaller precision weaponry. What's the purpose of these towers? They're OPs, so observation posts, essentially, forward locations that are really on the lookout for bad guys. What they're probably targeting this with is, weapons with some level of standoff, so outside of really visible distance for these OPs, because nobody seems alarmed ahead of the attacks. Ronnie, can you sell those shorts? Nope. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. I'll be moving over and so Josh from the website, one of our writers, if you have never checked out the analysis section on the website, you should, because each of the writers does try to provide, you know, what context they've had. But Josh and I tonight are going to play Stabby, kick back and just chat and hang out a little bit on Chivalry 2. It's going to redirect you automatically over there. I'd love to have you. If I can plug myself and the community over there for a moment, we have raised over $40,000 for veteran charity, largely by diverting the income that I make on that stream side to my partner StackUp.org and their fight to use gaming to combat veteran suicide. Feel free to come over and ask me why I started that. But we'll see you guys over there. This is the last time I'll see you here. Until next Tuesday. I'm competing this weekend in a Bang Bang competition. I'm really excited about it. I'll post on Instagram and probably on Twitter. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. It's my first time. Be gentle. But I'm out of here. Stay informed.
Patrol.